Hey, everybody. Hold on a second. Hello. Let's see. Hey, everybody. Just give me 1 second if you're in here. Just, this is my first time doing a live stream. Want to make sure my mic is properly set up. I've actually done live streams before, but it's first time on this channel, or this newest iteration of the channel anyway. You gotta, in order to have the super chat, you have to apparently have monetization enabled. So I just enabled that tonight. Sorry, it's my train of thought. Jeez. I enabled that tonight, and it takes apparently a month for them to approve it. So I can't do the super chat yet, apparently. They have to, copiously pour over my entire YouTube channel or whatever to enable chat, which seems ridiculous, but it's all right. I mean, if you guys want to contribute over the course of the chat, do it through PayPal or Patreon or whatever. I'll try to get that enabled at some point. Gotta hustle on these streets, right? I'm just going to tweet out this link, and then I'll get to the nitty-gritty. So give me a moment. Okay, it's out. Thanks for bearing with me. Yeah, I mean, people call me a right-wing pundit. I guess one of the things that I kind of try to stick to is I don't really have much time for playing the self-categorization game. I get asked all the time, what are you? Are you progressive? Are you a libertarian? Whatever. I just don't care that much how you classify me. I'd rather make arguments and do reporting that stands up on its own merits, and then you can assess whether you believe it's valid or not based on your own independent assessment, rather than whether me telling you, oh, yeah, this is progressive with a capital P. I mean, I can tell you that I've worked for progressive outlets. I worked for the Young Turks, obviously. I started out journalistically at The Nation magazine, which is like the flagship magazine of the American left. But at the same time, I've written for the American Conservative magazine for years. I've written for Reason magazine, the Libertarian magazine. I've written for places all over the spectrum. I write now for the New York Daily News, which is, center-left, I guess, editorially. But I'm allowed to write what I want. I'm more interested in having an impartial assessment of facts and evidence and trying to logically apply my own interpretation to what's before me, rather than shouting out an ideological label and calling everybody, demanding that everybody, be pleased with that or use that as the prism by which they perceive my work. Yeah, The Spectator is center right. The Spectator is a British magazine. It's actually founded in the 1800s. And last year, they started a U.S. division. And since July of last year, I've been writing for them pretty frequently. But they let me write exactly what I want. mean, I wouldn't tolerate having anything dictated to me in terms of what I was permitted to write or not write. So that's my main criteria in whether I will contribute to a publication. Obviously, there are other factors to take into consideration, but mostly it's whether I'm permitted to write without interference, and the Spectator allows me to do that, so that's why I do so. But even growing up as a kid, I always found it illuminating to engage with people who disagreed with me. And I had friends all across the spectrum. Generally, I was Democratic leaning. As a kid, I supported Obama in 2007, 2008. I've written about that and talked about that publicly. That was prior to doing anything in journalism. But as a private citizen, I traveled around the country and campaigned for Obama. And I'm transparent with my voting history. I told people that I voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016. I don't know what more people want from me. They want to kind of do this pigeonhole routine. I just don't care for that. So anyway, will you get somebody asked if I'll get Tucker on the podcast. That's actually a good idea. That's occurred to me. Obviously, the internet would have a meltdown if I did that, but I think he'd be willing to do it. He's actually surprisingly eager to do all kinds of media. I mean, I saw an interview with him earlier this year in Salon, which is like a shell of its former self. Salon actually used to be really good. They hosted Greenwald for years. They had some of the most quote-unquote cutting-edge reporters and commentators for a long time, but now they've been in financial free fall for a long time now, and it's just like a clickbait factory. But nonetheless, Tucker did some kind of interview with Salon, so he's willing to do all kinds of media, which I actually think is laudable. And whenever people have all these suspicions about me being on Tucker and like what calculations have gone into it. Here's exactly how it happened. In 2016, I wrote a piece for the Daily Beast, believe it or not, before this neocon editor took over and destroyed it. Occasionally, they'll still have some good stuff now, but there's this guy, Noah Shackman, who runs the Daily Beast, who has turned it into almost a propagandistic disgrace. But in 2016, I was able to do a couple of pieces for the Daily Beast on stuff related to the 2016 campaign. And I wrote one piece that was published in September of 2016, which was basically arguing that the media had a, quote, Trump-sized blind spot, meaning there was nobody in any elite media who had a favorable view of Trump, including in the conservative media, which I don't include Fox in necessarily. I mean, elite media like the Wall Street Journal editorial page, the Weekly Standard, which has since folded, National Review, Commentary, some of the more academic conservative outlets. Nobody in any elite sector of the media had anything, it was even remotely favorably disposed toward Trump. So my point was that that's inevitably going to create some blind spots in your coverage where the only way that you think that you can cover Trump and Trump supporters is to send reporters on this like quasi safari to West Virginia where they investigate as if they're aliens landing on a foreign planet and try to talk to Trump supporters. Anyway, that's an oversimplification of the argument, but Tucker ended up seeing that piece. He liked it. He invited me on the show when he was a co-host on Fox and the weekend Fox and Friends, and he invited me on the show. That was my first direct encounter with him. I was on the show in September 2016. When he began to fill in, I think then he had either a 7 p.m. show or a 9 p.m. show for a while on Fox. I was on that. Then I was at the Young Turks for a year and a half, so I wasn't on anything really other than the Young Turks. But then, then Tucker began inviting me on to come on his 8 p.m. show. mean, that's really it. There's no mysterious, series of events which led up to it. It's pretty straightforward. The Tucker's producers or Tucker himself never tell me what to say. I could say anything I want on the show without censorship. So it's not this big mystery. I don't know why people are so befuddled by it or want to cast aspersion on my motives for doing it. My philosophy is I will go on virtually any media within reason, okay, if I can say unfettered what it is that I believe, okay? And that's why I was able to, as somebody's pointing out in the chat, on one of my Tucker appearances, I criticized Fox News and Trump and John Bolton. I've actually criticized Trump on multiple occasions, including the most recent appearance. So why would Fox permit me to do that if I was just their stooge or something? But I say with the exact same thing I would on Fox News as I would on a left-wing podcast, which I also do. So I don't know what people are so out of their mind about. I find it funny when people melt down over Greenwald. I have been on RT actually before it was considered this like propagandistic menace. This was actually years ago, and it was tinier. I mean, I went to RT Studios in New York, and commented on the 2012 election. Actually, they had me on to talk about Ron Paul, and they had me on other times through Skype to talk about Ron Paul and I think Occupy Wall Street. RT was good because during Occupy Wall Street, which I covered intensely, they were one of the few outlets to actually cover the protests comprehensively and not from this dismissive, hoity-toity standpoint, which a lot of media did, including the liberal media. So RT had a lot of great coverage of Occupy Wall Street, partly because I guess editorially they want to amplify, quote, divisions in the U.S., but the U.S. does have divisions, as Occupy was an example of that. So yeah, I have been on RT. I honestly don't know if I do RT now. Actually, I get requests from them every now and then, but I just kind of have to ignore them because the sad reality is it would automatically get construed as me abetting Russian propaganda, and I just have to make subjective determinations about what the best use of my time is. And unfortunately, I don't think that's a great use of my time right now to be parrying off that accusation. Somebody asked me how was Anna at TYT. I met Anna once at a social event that they held. Briefly encountered her. Every time I was on the panel, it was with Jank and others. I was never on a panel with her. She seems like a pleasant person. I just don't know her that well. My experience at TYT was great. I mean, in the sense that they didn't impose any mandates on me to do anything. They didn't prevent me from saying anything. So that was the sense in which I appreciated TYT. The super chat function is not enabled for me right now because I hadn't submitted my channel for monetization, and I guess that's a requirement in order to do the super chat. If you guys want to contribute, I'll type my PayPal address here. Yeah, I don't want to seem like I'm begging for money or whatever, but you gotta hawk your wares. Unfortunately, I wish we all lived in a socialist utopia where I didn't have to solicit money. But there's my PayPal direct link. Hey, PayPal. A lot of people still use PayPal. I mean, PayPal is really easy to use. I've had an account for forever. I don't see what's wrong with it. I mean, people still use it, and that's how Pierre Omidyar got his. Peter Thiel got his fortune. So I mean, they're still doing well. By the way, I guess I should get paid for this, but I just found a new type of seltzer. I guess it's backwards, but it's like a New York company, I guess, Howell's. It's really good. I mean, I'm a seltzer connoisseur, but I just ordered I was in the city and I just was in a deli or something and got one, and I really liked it relative to other seltzers. So I got home and ordered a huge case of them. So free promotion for Hal's. I have a Patreon, and I'll place that here too. I try to promote all my stuff for you people, but apparently it doesn't go through. I know people have like criticisms of Patreon because they ejected Sargon of Akkad. Look, all these platforms are imperfect, okay? Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, it doesn't mean you disengage from them. That's at least my philosophy. You have to engage with them, and then you can actually encourage better practices. So I don't think any of them are inherently evil. Twitter is my primary social media outlet, and relative to the others, I've always thought that Twitter was actually the most ethical. Not all the time, still a lot of problems, but at least Jack and his subordinates are much more transparent than anybody else, whether it be Facebook or Google or whatever, Apple. And so that's I appreciate that from the standpoint of I've invested a ton of time in Twitter. So I want to encourage their best instincts, and that requires participating. I'm Irish. I'm half Irish. Tracy is an Irish name. Half Irish and half Italian. My father's side is Irish, and my mother's side is Italian. And both from New Jersey. If you were from Ireland here, oh, hello. Good to know. Angela Nagel is a good friend of mine. You might be familiar with her. She's from Ireland, but she lives in New York City now. One of the best commentators, political analysts, authors out there. So Irishman, I know she's written about Irish specific topics quite a bit. So look into her if you don't know her. I'll have her on as a podcast guest soon. I've actually had her on twice in the past. Back when I just had this kind of really shell of a YouTube channel in 2016, 17, she was on. And then I also had her on at the Young Turks, which you can look up. Now, Angela Nagel's book is fantastic. It's not terrible. Do I watch political YouTubers? Not really. I mean, I watch. I do watch Joe Rogan here and there. I mean, how can you not? Some of the stuff is amazing. But he's not really a political YouTuber. Like, he had Tulsi on for for best interviews that she's ever done. My interview with her was the best, of course. And actually, I'm going to be seeing her tomorrow in New York. So if you're in the New York area and you like Tulsi, she's doing her first campaign event in New York City at 11 a.m. And I don't have the address in front of me, but just Google it, Tulsi, June 8th, New York City. It should come up. It's Union Square. But in terms of other YouTubers, not really. I mean, I frankly don't watch the Young Turks. I never really did watch the Young Turks. I would see a clip here and there, but that's just not how I consume information for the most part. For the most part, I'm reading. I'm reading. Reading is, I think, the optimal way to consume information, which is kind of ironic right now because I'm engaging in a video medium. And I know a lot of people do consume information that way, but I actually think it's a little disturbing, frankly, that people are so reliant on visual or auditory mediums right now, because I think it just limits your analytical abilities and your ability to process and retain information if that's strictly what you rely on. So I actually do encourage people to read as much as they can, whether books or internet. But no, in terms of other political YouTubers, not really. I mean, I watch like clips and interviews and stuff on YouTube, but it's usually not from YouTubers. I mean, every once in a while something will come up and I'll watch it, but nothing regularly. Frankly, most of what I watch on YouTube, what I listen to on YouTube is old Howard Stern clips, because I'm kind of obsessed. Are you enjoying doing these YouTube videos? Yeah, I guess I am in a way. You know, I when I first joined the Young Turks, one of the things that I had to do before I really had much of a mandate in terms of what they wanted me to do with the Young Turks was to just do these videos where I stare at a screen and talk extemporaneously. And at first I found it a little bit weird. But I've come around to it. If people like it, if people want me to do it, then I will do it. It's not how I personally would consume information. Again, if that's the way people are getting their information, then I will provide the service gladly. And I like to do it as a complement to my written work. Now, I've kind of broken my rules a bunch of times now, and I do it on random subjects, but I don't go on just to rant blindly for the most part, although I guess I kind of am right now. So maybe I'm breaking every rule. But if I write an article or a column or something, what I'll usually do is I'll do a video based on that column, and I'll expand on certain points or elaborate on different elements of the argument or whatever. And that, I think, is a good model because it drives additional traffic to the article. And also, I'm talking about something for which my thoughts are already structured, so I'm not making them up on the fly, right? And I think it's different for me because I come to YouTube through written journalism. I mean, that's what I started out doing. Not written commentary, all kinds of writing. And therefore, my approach, I think, is just different from the lion's share of, quote, YouTubers who they have YouTube as their primary medium. That's how they entered the sphere of public commentary. And that's just not the same for me. Let's get Michael Tracy reacts to Freebird for a music reaction video. That's hilarious. There's such a funny video that I just randomly encountered with this guy. It's like his name is something Broke Shack or something like that. Let me look up this guy because it was so funny. Hold on. No Life Shack. Shack is in like Shaquille O'Neal. That's how he spells it. But he does this reaction video to Freebird, and he's a guy who's, he's a black guy in South Carolina, I think. So he mostly listens to YouTube, to hip hop and rap and stuff. But eventually he started branching out to classic rock, metal, and that kind of stuff. But there's one video where he watches Freebird for the first time, or listens to Freebird for the first time, and it's amazing. So look that up. But I'm not going to do music reaction videos, I don't think. Yeah, I am sweating a little bit. What are you going to do? Mother Nature. I think, okay, so yeah, one of the people were upset because there was a clip circulated from one of my videos where I said, get over it with regard to Carlos, Maza, and Crowder. Let me just explain what I meant by that, okay? I was specifically referring to Maza, okay, not all LGBT people. I'm not saying all LGBT people everywhere need to get over it if somebody's doing obviously, vulgar and demeaning attacks on them. I was saying Carlos Maza specifically ought to get over the fact that he's going to be ridiculed online by dint of him choosing a profession voluntarily that entails him making provocative political statements online, okay? He's employed by a major media company, Vox, that pays him to go on the internet and make provocative political statements. And I listed some of them in a previous video. He calls people white supremacists constantly. He advocates for street violence to targeting his enemies. He says free speech is an obsolete concept. Now, you can agree or disagree with any of those viewpoints, okay? But there's no denying that they're provocative, right? So if you make a provocative statement online and you've chosen to be a public figure, you are thereby essentially choosing to receive provocative criticism and insults in return. And I think it's infantile and, yes, pathetic for you then to go and say that these insults I'm receiving should be a grounds for the tech companies to modify their speech regulation policies to appease me because the insults are that bad. No. If you don't want to get insulted online, don't be a political commentator. Choose a different line of work. I'm sorry. So yeah, are the insults from Crowder juvenile and buffoonish and demeaning? Yes, and I've said that repeatedly. Crowder is a doofus. I don't know how you can listen to that guy and actually enjoy yourself. Okay, but Maza is saying that his personal experience ought to be used as a basis to pressure YouTube into changing its policies simply to mollify Maza. And I find that to be a joke, okay? If you are a professional journalist, that should not be your instinct, because that you're almost like begging for parental supervision in a way. You want teacher to get involved and discipline the people, your classmates are being mean to you on the playground. No, I'm sorry. These are supposed to be neutral entities in terms of the content of speech, meaning YouTube, Twitter, etc. In practice, they're not, but at least they ought to be. So I have no time whatsoever for a journalist saying that because I'm getting mean insults, YouTube must banish a particular person to protect me from those insults. And Maza actually did use that kind of, infantile phraseology where he's saying he needs protection. And he was saying he was doing a cry for help. Okay? YouTube is not there to help you or protect you. They're there to facilitate video services on the internet. Okay? So that's my view. I'm not defending the content of Crowder's speech. I'm saying YouTube shouldn't arbitrarily impose punishments simply because they're being pressured to impose those punishments by this horde of frenzied media, moralizers and hyperbolic idiots. There's a major irony in journalists being the one leading the charge to demand censorship or to demand that people be punished on account of their speech. Yeah, maybe Crowder wasn't technically censored in the sense that he is still allowed to post videos on YouTube, but Maza was demanding censorship. He was demanding that Crowder be deplatformed and not permitted to engage in YouTube any further. Okay? So that's a fundamentally censorious impulse on Maza's part and on the part of everybody else who is joining his bandwagon, whether you're a journalist or an activist or whatever you may be. Journalists have historically, or so I thought, been the ones to be the bulwark against censorship, whether it's governmental or corporate, because their entire profession is bound up inextricably in free speech, or at least in the danger posed by, officious authorities intervening to dictate what kind of speech can be transmitted. I'm sorry, that is a fundamentally censorious impulse. Even if you're saying it has to be done on the grounds of like protecting marginalized people. I don't buy that Carlos Maza is a marginalized person. I'm sorry, I just do not. He's employed by a major media outlet, one of the biggest and most influential, okay, Vox. He was able to pressure the leading internet video service, YouTube, to cater to his whims. You're not marginalized if you're able to accomplish that, okay? So marginalized is not the right word for him. Just because he's gay and Hispanic doesn't mean he's in all senses marginalized. It's just not the case. Glenn Greenwald made exactly this point on Tucker last night, which people, freaked out about. Greenwald gets harassed all the time because of his sexual orientation and because of his, male partner and all that. Doesn't mean that Greenwald is marginalized or that he therefore would be justified in whining to the tech authorities to impose censorship on his behalf. No. It's ridiculous. So I'm saying that Maza should get over it in the sense that he shouldn't use his personal grievances as a ground to demand censorship. Okay, you're a professional adult journalist. If you're that fragile, where your mental health or whatever issue is going on is that dependent on whether a YouTube idiot can insult you, then you aren't in the correct line of work. I'm sorry. If he were just an ordinary citizen who had no expectation that he was going to be maligned on the internet, I would have a different view. But in terms of Maza himself, not all LGBT people, not all marginalized people, Maza, Carlos Maza, the guy who led this crusade, yeah, he should get over it. And if he wants to harshly rebut Steven Crowder, go right ahead. Be my guest. You should do it. So not get over it in the sense of drop the issue. Get over it in the sense of don't use that to justify your censorship crusade. All right. Yeah, you probably hear some horns outside my window. You have a window right here, and there's a street below. So the horn was not trying to censor me, though. I'm not trying to get that horn deplatformed. It's just people who can't contain their emotions behind the wheel. You know, I can't remember the last time I actually beat my horn. I actually do have a car and I drive, regularly. But I do not beat my horn. Like, what does that ever accomplish? Unless, like, there's a truly specific situation where beeping your horn has utility. So, like, alerting somebody of something. But, like, just because somebody's in front of you and not going fast, I never do it. I just feel like it creates unnecessary stress in both you and the person you're beeping at. And the entire atmosphere in which you're in. Like, nobody likes to hear the beep noise. And also the horn in my car is like a wussy horn. It's like a beep. It's not an authoritative, intimidating horn. So nobody would really be respect its commands anyway. Yeah. So there's this guy, Humanist Report, who I'm actually not that familiar with. I think he was in the Young Turks network at some point. I honestly don't know. But I noticed, one weird dynamic is on Twitter especially, and I guess on the internet broadly, is if you're criticized over and over again, as I am regularly, and that's fine. I invite it in a way because I'm a public figure. I'm not a major public figure, but public enough where I have to expect to withstand criticism. People criticize you, and then you reply, right? And then your replying to that criticism is taken as you somehow overreacting, right? Or you having a meltdown, or you getting too heated, or something. So it's just like your only options, I guess, are to ignore the criticism, or to engage directly with the criticism and then be accused of melting down, or like, I don't know exactly. It's just weird to me. So yeah, I do reply to criticisms often. So I replied to this guy, Humanist Report, because he was saying that I'm a right-wing grifter. As a result of my position on the Crowder and Maza and speech issue, I don't think that anything I've said here is like inherently right-wing. And even if it were, I mean, that's not an adequate argument to rebut it. But nonetheless, I said to this guy, I guess his name is Mike something, right? Look, if you have these very cantankerous criticisms of me, where I'm a fraud, right-wing grifter. I mean, by the way, if I'm a grifter, I'm not doing so well in the grifting game because, I mean, I'm not living a life of luxury. I can assure you of that. Let me just plug in my computer here. Sorry. Which I should have done to begin with. Yeah, so I just said to this guy, look, if you have these incendiary criticisms of me, that's fine. I could take it. Why don't we just discuss it? We both do YouTube. We both can do podcasts. We both are online, right? So if you have these criticisms, level them directly, and I'll respond to them. I mean, what's wrong with that? I'm not doing a Ben Shapiro style, like, debate me. I hereby challenge you to a debate, and if you don't debate me, you're a coward, and I talk really fast, and that's how I win debates. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm saying we have a reasonable, mutually good faith discussion about these criticisms that you have of me, and I'll respond in kind. What is so bad about that? I don't really get it. I don't know. He doesn't seem to want to do it. I know that guy Nico Case. Did I get his name right? I'm sorry. It's Nico, right? He offered to moderate it. I don't know that we even really need a moderator per se. If he had more followers, he'd talk to you. Nico House, I'm sorry. Nico Case is a musician. Yeah, I knew that. Both Nico. If he had more followers, he'd talk to me. I mean, I have not that it should matter, but I have like more than double the amount of followers of him on Twitter. Yeah, I'm not a big YouTube megastar, but just like that. That's your grounds on which you determine whether to debate people or talk to people. And I'm not even challenging him to a debate. It was just a discussion. Not going to be accusatory. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, Nico. I actually defended Nico House recently because the Huffington Post, one of the smear artists at the Huffington Post, who is they employ this. I don't know if they employ him, but they take freelance articles from this person. I'm not even going to mention his name. That's how disgusting of a troll he's turned into. Who I actually used to work with, who goes after Tulsi constantly. I mean, they kind of use Tulsi as a proxy to attack me, Greenwald, Angela Nagel, other people of our rough disposition to the extent that we share anything in common politically. So they go after Tulsi. I mean, our enemies, quote unquote, in the media go after Tulsi often because they want to like discredit us by extension. And that's most on display with this particular individual journalist, who I'm not going to name because I just don't want to give him any amplification at all. But he wrote, and you can, I guess if you want, you can Google it. But he wrote this piece, this Huffington Post thing on trying to malign Tulsi because I guess did Nico House win some kind of competition for Tulsi where he got like the most number of people to donate to her, and therefore he got to have dinner with her or something like that. I think that's what happened. But anyway, like the journalist went through and watched Nico House's videos and found some of his most purportedly discrediting statements and tried to use that against Tulsi because he was his top fundraiser, even though he's like a guy on YouTube. He's not like a Wall Street titan. Anyway, Antifa calls Tulsi a fascist now. Who says that? That's amazing. Yeah, but so I defended Nico from that, and I've seen him here and there on various things. Again, I'm not that familiar with any of these people. Every now and then I'll watch something, but I'm not that into the YouTube political commentary world. Some Wall Street face of Antifa accounts on Twitter were pushing that. So you mean that you're saying that there are Wall Street people who have Antifa Twitter accounts and they're going after Tulsi? Okay, I don't know. That's bizarre. Let me turn on a light here because the sun's going down. Give me a sec. Oh. Alrighty. Let's see. What else? You should start wearing a headband. Nah. What I should start doing is figuring out if my air conditioner works, which I've delayed doing. But yeah, I know my face is moist, but if you were here, you could give it a big fat kiss, and then the moisture would get in your lips, and you'd really enjoy that, wouldn't you? New York is hot as hell in the summer. It really is. I'm in Jersey City, which is the sixth and best borough. But yeah, it can get brutally humid here, and so that's why I got to get my my air conditioning situation under control. Yeah, I am going to see Tulsi tomorrow. I'm going to hopefully be interviewing her for a written column. That should be in the works. I would hope that would be out on Monday or Tuesday. Did Tracy talk about the Fox Business story about Tulsi at all? Which Fox Business story? Jersey City, I'm in Union. Let's roll up. All right, let's do it. Can I come? If you're asking if you can come to the Tulsi event in New York, anybody can come. It's a public event. Look it up. I don't have it in front of me. Here, let me. I guess I'll just look it up because I have my web browser open. All right, so it's tomorrow, June 8th. Event begins at 11 a.m. It's at a place called Project Farmhouse. That's at 76 East 13th Street, New York, New York, 10003. So I'll be there, and if you're there, say hello. Are you fantasizing about Joe Biden sniffing and kissing your head? Oh, I'd love that. I'd get moister if that happened. Yeah, the Fox Business story about her trying to court Wall Street to get funding from them. That story, Kyle Kulinski, I saw tweeted that. I did read that Fox Business story. The guy who wrote that, Charlie Gasparino, is like a pundit. He's not a reporter. He didn't put in any specifics in that. I basically know what her schedule is for her New York trip. She did a commencement speech today in Newark, and she's doing events tomorrow. Now, is it possible that a Wall Street person shows up? But she's not having a specific Wall Street event. She's doing an event in the evening, a fundraising event in the evening that's hosted by this Indian doctor, ethnically Indian doctor who's hosting a fundraiser for her. It's not a Wall Street fundraiser. If a Wall Street person shows up on their own volition, possibly, but I don't. That doesn't justify the premise of Gasparino's article, and there's nothing that I've seen that substantiates that. And Kyle Kulinski made the same point yesterday. If you support Tulsi, you should definitely talk to Nico Moore. I'm not endorsing any candidate. Okay, I've said that I do have admiration for Tulsi. I support much of what she says. I've written about her, and I will continue to do so. So I'm not going to make an explicit endorsement. But when the primary comes, New Jersey votes late. But I'll say who I'm going to vote for. But I'm not quote unquote supporting anybody. And Tracy is slowly becoming red-pilled. Won't be long before he's your guy. I'm not becoming red-pilled. I'm not going to. I find that so. Isn't that old at this point? Aren't you kind of stuck in like 2015, 16 if you're still using the red pill terminology? Aren't you bored of that? That's from The Matrix. Wasn't that movie from like 1999 or something? Come up with some new terms to describe this ideological journey that you think that you're instigating people to go on. I'm not getting red-pilled, people, all right? I told you, tell me what red that would even mean. It's facile, and I think it's pathetic. How would I describe the current state of Russiagate? Well, if they want to impeach on the basis of Russia, then it's still raging. They're going to have their first impeachment-style meetings on Monday, or hearings on Monday, where it's basically going to be like an MSNBC panel. The Judiciary Committee is going to roll out John Dean, who hasn't been relevant since 1974 and has made an entire career on the fact that he had one notable event during the Nixon years. He's going to be testifying for some reason, even though he has no unique insights whatsoever, you would think, on Russia or Mueller. And then you have this other woman, Joyce Vance, I think is her name is, who's like an MSNBC pundit. They're trying to like gin up public anticipation for the initiation of impeachment proceedings, which Gerald Mueller apparently wants, and has been trying to lobby Pelosi to allow him to initiate. The thing is, if Nadler had any spine, he could do it on his own. He doesn't need to get approval from Pelosi. But so much power is now concentrated in the hands of the Speaker of the House that everybody, the congressman, kind of like meekly just kneels before them, and it's actually pathetic. Paul Ryan wielded the same power in the previous Congress. So Nadler, if he was so committed to impeachment, number one, why hasn't he said so publicly? Well, he doesn't want to be portrayed as undermining Pelosi. Number two, he could just do it right now. depicted as being the person who has to personally endorse this in order for it to happen is that there's artificial coalescence of like perceived power around her that doesn't actually exist. It's just a matter of custom and just kind of public perception, really. So now they're going to initiate the proceedings right now if he wanted to, but he's not. Yeah, so I mean, it's not going away. I mean, when the Mueller report was first submitted in March, and there was nobody indicted for conspiracy or collusion. People who are roughly, in my quote Russia skeptic camp, said like Aaron Mate and Glenn Greenwald, they were saying, "Oh yeah, this is it. It's over." I mean, the corpse of Russiagate might rise on the floor for a little while longer until it's completely dead, but we're probably going to be moving on at some point soon. And I said no, I don't believe that, because we're just entering a new phase, and Democrats are not going to believe that the collusion thing was dispelled. Schumer and Pelosi put out a statement a couple weeks ago saying that there are still unresolved questions around collusion. Beto has suggested that collusion is still a live issue. So is Elizabeth Warren. So it's not going away. It's going to be with us for as long as Trump is in office. Whether that's another 2 or 6 years. I mean, it's really depressing, but that's why I've just accepted it, and I've steeled myself for it, and I'm going to engage with it because it's just a reality. Which is worse, Tea Party or Russiagate? I mean, they're kind of different phenomena, but they both arise out of something that actually is a commonality, in that when an opposition party is out of power, in the sense that they don't control the presidency, the party kind of loses its mind. The Tea Party people, in a big way, lost their mind. They latched onto all kinds of conspiracy theories about Obama, not being born in the U.S., blah blah blah, being a secret jihadist, all that nonsense. And the Democrats have kind of followed a different course, but actually on steroids, because Trump is an even more outsized figure than Obama was, and actually the centers of the central media, the mainstream political and media entities have been the ones that have been propagating Trump, Russia, and Mueller and all that, whereas they were not propagating the Obama conspiracy theories. So it's a function of how paranoia can infuse an opposition party, because being in the opposition is disorienting, and it allows for a big opening where quote unquote grifters and people trying to sell you a bill of goods can come in and fill the void and get people to believe wacky things. I'm so dejected or exhausted and dejected with politics. That guy's never mind. I should read the full comment before I go to read it out loud. Q is fake. I mean, I find the whole QAnon thing perversely fascinating, because it's essentially a choose your own adventure, like first person adventure game for adults, because Q is constantly dropping these hints that you can then investigate for yourself, and you can follow it down the rabbit hole, and you can come up with your own information. There is no limits to how you can engage with the Q story. It's actually something similar for Trump Russia. There's so many multifaceted strands and sinkholes you can go down with regard to Trump Russia that you could spend all day, every day, sleuthing on the internet for extra clues on Mueller, Trump, Russia, money laundering, Deutsche Bank, all this kinds of stuff. It never ends. And it's actually sort of an interesting phenomenon that I don't think has been adequately theorized. Yeah. Tracy is a gamer, the worst kind of person. I'm not a gamer now. I did play games when I was younger, to the point that I was upset. I mean, I played way too much video games when I was, an adolescent. I remember there was one point where I was subscribed to probably like 7 video game magazines at one time, which is kind of ridiculous. So like Electronic Gaming Monthly, Game Informer, PC Gamer, what else? And like 3 or 4 others. Do I play Fortnite? No, I've never played it. I've seen it played. I guess I see the appeal, but I just have so much else going on that I kind of have limited attentional energy, and I just don't feel that it's worthwhile for me to expend that energy on video games. I mean, every once in a while I'll play. I'll play, on my phone, like these little puzzle type games, but no, never. I don't play any consoles now. When I did play, I played, a lot of first-person shooters. I was really into Halo and Halo 2. I was into like Splinter Cell on Xbox. Remember that? I played Grand Theft Auto. I loved God of War. I would play that. On the computer, I was into Command and Conquer. What else? I played all the typical Nintendo games. I loved the Worms games. Ever play those? Like Worms Armageddon? I was obsessed with that for a long time. What else? I never really liked racing games other than like Mario Kart. Trying to think now. I like Zelda. I mean, who cares? It's just all the standard stuff, really. But whatever. Oh, I loved Morrowind. So other RPGs. Devil May Cry is better than God of War. Maybe so, but I loved God of War. I never played Devil May Cry. What music am I into? When I was younger, so when I was probably, I want to say when I was like from 16 to 23 or something, I was much more into music. I still listen to some music, but I'm not as assertive about like finding new music now, or going to concerts or music festivals or that kind of stuff. I mean, there was a point where I went to like 2 music festivals a year and a bunch of concerts, and was always listening to new albums and stuff. And I actually, coincidentally, I just went to a concert for the first time in a while, like 2 weeks ago. Superorganism, which I love. I love Superorganism because they're so unique. I don't even know what genre I would say they are. And I still like Hot Chip a lot. I was obsessed with them as a teen, and I still like them just as much. They have a new album coming out later this month that I'm really excited for. I'm going to see them live in September. Fish, yeah. I'm not a Fish fanatic. I've listened to them, obviously. I used to play a Farmhouse on the guitar. But it's not that huge into it. Why am I 60 years old? I'm not. Google, if you search for me, conflates me with somebody else named Michael Tracy, who's like a journalism professor in Colorado. And it kind of like merges my photo with his like biographical description. So I get a lot of people thinking that I am Michael Tracy, who's like in his 60s and was involved in the John Benet Ramsey case, which I was not. I have nothing to do with John Benet or Ramsey. So, but that guy was apparently. I mean, maybe I should talk. I should probably invite that guy in for a podcast so we could talk about having the same name, because it is kind of funny. Do you talk about your latest Tulsi Hindu nationalism video? You should talk to Arundhati Roy about what fascist monsters the BJP Modi are and the entire movement are. I'd be open to that. I mean, the purpose of that podcast was more to discuss whether it is rational or it makes sense to characterize Tulsi herself as a Hindu nationalist simply because she has made diplomatic overtures to Modi, just like virtually everybody else in the American political class, including the vast majority of the Democratic Party. And I don't think that's accurate in terms of describing her, but that's not to say that there aren't serious issues with Modi. There are, and I bring up some of them in that interview that I did with the executive director of the Hindu American Foundation. But I would talk to that person for sure. But the interview wasn't supposed to be about Modi so much as the accusations that Tulsi receives in relation to Modi. When did we get your cookie UFO theory? Eventually, I guess. I just don't want to be. I don't feel like I should haphazardly state every kooky theory that I have. Okay, and the UFO thing is kind of conducive to having kooky theories. It is really bizarre, though, that there are legitimate news reports. There's a major uptick in legitimate news reports about the existence of UFOs. I think there are a number of potential reasons for it, but I don't want to spout off right now. I got to give it some more thought in terms of how to address that or whether to address it. All right, I'll go for another 3 minutes or so. We're at 57 minutes. So if you have any great, especially incisive comments, what's the last thing you've read? I'm reading right now Chris Arnotti's new book. It's called Dignity. Chris Arnotti's a friend. He's a very incisive and unique journalist, and he just put out a brand new book called Dignity, which is basically a chronicle of his travels around the country, talking to what he calls back row kids, which is like people who are not elites, who basically live in their hometown their entire lives, don't have the opportunity to move from their deindustrialized city or to like leave rural Kentucky or whatever. And it's really good. So I recommend people buying that. Thanks for all the great reporting. Well, you're welcome. Better third chair, Jackie, Martling, or Artie? I'm going with Jackie. I like Jackie a lot. Because he always provided his presence with Howard Stern created like tension in a way that made for interesting radio, because he was always up to some shenanigans, or he's always trying to get a deal, or he was always busting somebody's chops, or there was always some kind of like controversy going on with Jackie, and it just made for a funny tension with Howard and Garrett and the rest of the crew. But where Artie, he was more of this lovable guy who was like didn't want to rock the boat too much, so he was never. Artie wasn't causing fights so much. So I prefer Jackie. Debate David Client. I have debated David Client. Look it up on Blogging Heads. It's actually on YouTube from 2017. So I have, and I've tweeted with him a bunch, and I'll debate him again if he wants to. Talk about Glenn on Tucker Carlson. I did. I mean, I thought he made great points as usual. He brought up that he gets inundated with homophobic attacks all the time, not just from random YouTubers, but from the president of the country that he lives in and the president's family. And yet it would never occur to him to run to the tech authorities and say that you must expel or penalize the people attacking me because I'm so offended and I need protection. That would be ridiculous. Write a book about the issues of contemporary journalism. All the cool kids are write books these days. I am writing a book. I don't want to say much more about it. It's still very early, but I am writing one, and it's going to encompass a lot of the stuff that I talk about. Howard Stern has tried to be a liberal shill pushing Russiagate, and now loving people he used to hate. Yeah, I would love to. I tried to put in a request for Howard Stern to do an interview with me when he was on his recent book tour, but I never heard anything back, sadly. But that would have been fascinating. I feel like I'm one of the preeminent Howard Stern experts. Thoughts on Marianne Williamson? I find it bizarre that she's she was Oprah's spiritual guru, and somehow she's marshaled that into not so much a viable presidential candidacy, but enough of a viable presidential candidacy where she's going to be in these debates. That's bizarre. That's really all I have to say about it. I should probably watch a full speech of hers, because, anyway, I guess post-Trump, we shouldn't be surprised if all kinds of strange people from idiosyncratic backgrounds enter the presidential sphere. Is it going to be called Tracy on Tracy, the book? No, it's not going to be a memoir. I'm not nearly old enough to even remotely contemplate doing a memoir. I think it's noxious when people in roughly my age range write memoirs as if you have enough experience at my age 27 to write a full memoir on your life. I mean, I find that just really haughty and unbecoming. Howard Stern is a non-religious conservative who spent decades being censored by conservatives. That's true. That's true. I mean, he supported mostly conservative politicians in New York State. Rudy Giuliani, George Pataki. He supported Christine Todd Whitman in New Jersey. He supported Al D'Amato, the Republican senator from New York. So yeah, that's an accurate description of him. But he's moved to he's a little bit more of a liberal Democrat now, I guess. No, I'm not 27. I'm 30. But even if you're 30, I don't think you really are entitled to write a memoir. Talk about Mike Gravel. I think he's funny, and I think the teens around him are funny. Actually, the Mike Gravel teens are going to be doing a live podcast, or they're going to be joining the Red Scare Girls, who I'm friendly with, at a live podcast they're doing on June. I don't know the exact date. Some late June. Definitely going to go to it. It's at WNYC Green Space, so that should be really funny if you're interested and you're in the area. Just Google that. Could you beat Ben Shapiro in a fist fight? I don't know that I would want to enter a situation where Ben Shapiro and I are having a physical altercation. I would beat him in a debate. I've challenged him to debates, and he won't respond. I would love to debate him on Israel and American foreign policy, and I keep going after him to do that, but he doesn't respond to my offers. So, in terms of the fist fight, my skills there are rusty. So as unintimidating as Ben Shapiro is, there's a small possibility he could beat me in a fist fight, which is why I would not want to instigate that kind of altercation in the first place. All right, I'm going to leave it there, everybody. And if you enjoyed this, let me know. I'll do it more in the future. I'll try to be able to enable the super chat function when YouTube gets around to authorizing that monetization thing on my channel. But that's it. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.